Welcome to the Property Strategy Podcast. Today I am sitting down with Mr. Shane Hiscock from Locate Buyers Agency. Shane, thanks so much for coming into the studio and having a bit of chat today.
Mate, thanks for the invite. I'm excited and glad to be here.
I'm really looking forward to this one. Now, Shane and I have had a bit of conversation off air, which I've had to said pause. We're going to have to then hit record on this because we're going to go a little bit of a deeper dive into your story, because I've just found it absolutely fascinating in the kind of little anecdotes that you've kind of dropped so far. So I wanted to firstly, well, maybe you can take the floor in terms of introducing yourself and giving us a bit of an insight as to where people may have seen your face, and obviously give a bit of a slight plug for the business as we kick off the podcast.
Cool, that sounds good. So as you said, Shane Hiscock, I run Locate Buyers Agency. We're a boutique buyers agency in Brisbane. There's 6 of us. We buy a property every 2 days. A lot of that's owner-occupier, but we still help investors. Background was IT, worked for IBM Australia, did some property development, then went and did a lot of property development, as we spoke about before. It wasn't, I guess, ideally suited, I don't think, to my personality style, and that sort of moved me further into the buyers agency world, and that's what I do today.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So you kind of mentioned there we're buying properties quite regularly. We're buying properties solely in like Brisbane or Southeast Queensland in general, or all over Australia?
Really just in Brisbane.
Okay.
So, we're primarily focused inside the 15-kilometre ring.
Yep.
Although we do at times venture out of that for the right brief, but sometimes Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, but that's really it for us.
Okay, and that's predominantly for the investors is where you would branch outside of the 15K ring in Brizzy, or even potentially owner-occupiers further north and south?
I'll backtrack that a little bit. We have done a little bit in Toowoomba for investors because we have someone on the ground there that has a lot of on-the-ground experience. But no, if we're branching outside of the inside 15-kilometre ring, it's often for owner-occupiers.
Yeah, beautiful.
So it could be a Mermaid Waters beach, riverfront property, something like that.
Nice.
Yep.
And your kind of experience within the space, obviously we're going to go into this in a little bit more detail, but how many years have you been operating as a BA?
I first set up a buyer's agency in 2010.
Okay.
But that was from then. I mostly secured development sites and as a buyer's agent, but then I also joint ventured on those projects. I did that through till 2018, and from 18 I worked for someone else for a couple of years, and then 2020 I started Locate Buyers Agency. So we've been going in
6 years.
For 6 years.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack some years, and I'm going to kind of get you to cast your memory back a little bit. And I always like to ask all my guests this. I want to know first property purchase that you ever made. Mm-hmm. If you still remember the purchase price.
Yeah.
Do you still own it? Did you sell it? What did you sell it for? And if you have sold it, what would it be worth today?
Okay, cool. So first property I purchased, I paid $350,000 for it.
Yep.
It was in 2005 in a suburb on the north side of Brisbane called Everton Park.
What was it, like an owner-occupier? Or
it was owner-occupier,
Yep.
so it's for us to move into. I know rent vesting's a big thing right now, but we really wanted to have something of our own. It wasn't really a thing back then.
Yep.
It wasn't a term that was around. It was really like go and get
your own house. While you've brought it up, let's go and we'll put a pause on the first property purchase. Let's go into the rent vesting chat, because I like to chat about this with absolutely anyone.
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
My take on it is that it depends on your values and stage of life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it works maybe if you're younger, you don't have kids yet, you possibly want to be a little bit more mobile.
Yep.
For example, we've got a lot of clients that are doing it that are a bit younger, that are young professionals. However, for me and myself, it didn't work for me because I think like we were having growing a family, kids were young, we want our own place to settle into. And my wife wants to put pictures on the walls and feel settled and not feel. She's Italian, old school Italian, just wants to own everything.
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah. There you go.
I tried to pitch the whole rent vesting thing, and it just did not work. Didn't fly.
Right. Doesn't work.
Didn't fly.
Yeah.
So what about your view in terms of like the numbers behind it? Do you see that it makes sense financially speaking for some investors in today's kind of environment, that whole rent vesting model?
Oh yeah, I see it can definitely make sense. But as I said, it depends stage of life. I think numbers can certainly make sense, and the tax deductibility of all the debt when you go in on rent vesting, you can, like we kind of did it for a while, forced into it almost, right? But obviously when you rent the house as well, if you're running a business out of it, you've got other deductions that you can make along the lines there as well. So I certainly do think it works, and as they say, you can rent where you want to live and, invest somewhere else.
It makes sense.
And you can rent something for far less than the loan amount on
and that's
particular
the
property
that's
in the
key
location,
critical thing, right?
So you can, but
Are you seeing that here in Brisbane, that it would make more sense for some people on like $1 per week, what it would cost you to rent the property versus like a loan at 80% LVR principal and interest? It'd be cheaper to rent it?
yeah, it would be. Yeah, most of the time, definitely way cheaper to rent it than it would be for the land.
I think that's
for
probably the
land
case
lease.
in most capital
Yeah,
cities,
yeah,
right?
I
All right,
think so as well.
let's come back. So, sorry, we had
Okay.
deviated off track there a little bit. Let's
That's
come
all
back to property purchase number one. So we paid $350
$350
for it in 2005. It was the
Primary
buyer at the time.
residence, yeah. So we moved into it. It was a little 3-bed, 1-bath. At the time, I remember scouring the market, doing my research. I really wanted something on a big block.
Yep.
And it was on 1,009
Oh,
square
wow.
meters. So it was a really good sized
Yep.
block for the time. It was a really good foundational property for us because it grew fairly quickly in value. And I was able to leverage that equity and go and do our first build, the first house that we ended up building, right?
When was that?
So 2005. So that was 2009.
Okay.
I'd started because I remember.
I was going to say, can you like cast your mind back to what was happening with respect to the GFC at the time?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
GFC was happening.
Yeah.
So I'd gone through the process of selecting a bit, getting a design, selecting a builder, that kind of stuff. Because it wasn't there was a building envelope on this site, so it wasn't just you couldn't just walk in
Yeah.
and pick a set of plans. And we were partway through that project when GFC came along.
Right.
So what we experienced was
So wait, what? So this was you were doing a build to your
for my primary residence.
yeah. So where were you living then?
But the idea, in now that first house that I
Gotcha,
bought.
okay,
So,
yeah,
so I bought that first
Yep.
house.
Leverage the equity.
Leverage the equity, bought a site,
Gotcha.
Rockerland,
Yep.
next neighbouring suburb.
Yep.
But the idea was always to flip that and stay here.
Right.
So it was just, I'm going to flip it, make some money and stay here. But then GFC comes along, 7 changes of foreman through the project, a 14-month project, which should have taken 7 or 8 months to build, really. I mean, back then, that's how quickly we were building houses. Now it takes me longer. So that really dragged us out. And then it was.
Were you worried, like from a cash flow perspective at that point in time?
Oh, not really. I was working in a corporate job. My wife was as well. We were both
Okay.
in IT. We were earning pretty good money at the time. So it wasn't too concerning.
Okay.
I was more, I just loved going to the building site. It was
Oh, yeah.
crazy. I was there every day.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
put one new piece of timber up. It's like, I don't need to be there every day.
Yeah,
But I
I
just
know.
really enjoyed learning about
That
the whole
hands-on
process. Yeah, it
process.
was super exciting
Yeah.
after being in IT, sitting inside, or you get to look at maybe a rack of servers or
Yeah,
something, which
yeah.
is the most boring thing
Thing
ever.
ever.
You get to be outside, right? So that was the idea with that property, was that we would flip it and sell it. But then GFC comes along, takes too long. It's like, a bit risky now. I don't know if the market's going to support the price that we thought we would get. So we end up moving into it.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Wow.
So we moved in and we rented this one out.
Okay.
But also because of blowouts in cost and time, it's the typical build the new house and then there's no fence, there's no landscape.
Yeah,
It's in this
yeah,
house
yeah.
on a patch of dirt.
Yeah.
Right. That's what
Yeah.
it looked like. So we thought, well, we'll move in and I'll gradually do the landscaping
Slowly.
and we'll do all that. And that took about another year. But at that time, that's when I actually met with my then boss at a IT conference and said, I'm resigning in 12 months. So I gave him the notice and I thought, I'll get this house finished by then and I'll be able to.
Then I'm out.
I'm out. I'll take the money and that'll help me survive for a while and I'll go and do something in property.
Oh, beautiful. And so this house, property number one,
Property number
was
one.
now being rented.
Was being rented?
Do you remember roughly what you were renting it out for?
That's a good question. I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated about like thinking about what rents were.
But I moved back into it.
Again.
After we sold this one, I moved back to it.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's talk
and-
about that.
Well, so the funny thing was, so we finished the other one, had a daughter.
Mhm.
I'm like freaking out about handprints on walls and
Yeah, you want to keep
crying,
things
I'm like,
pristine.
"Oh,"
Yeah, yeah.
It's just freaking me out. So I'm like, but as well, we wanted to exit that property to draw the cash anyway, right?
Yep.
So we moved back to the original house and we stayed there for another few years at least.
What'd you
while
do
we had another
the
daughter.
new build?
We sold that.
Okay, straight
We ended
away.
up selling it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, first we pulled equity.
Yep.
And then I used that to work through and live off while I was, because I'd quit work.
Oh,
to-
nice.
so-
Okay, yeah.
So,
So,
I
you
worked
had
out,
income from it, basically.
yeah, effectively, yeah.
Yeah.
So before I quit work, obviously,
Yep.
I pulled
While
the
you had the servicing,
drew the equity while
Yep.
I had the servicing, and thought, well, that'll cover my
expenses for
my
however
wages
long.
for a
Yep.
period of time. I mapped it all out and went, okay, cool. Well, then I'll go take the plunge and I'll take a chance and I'll start something else. And that's when I did that. And then as that's drawing up as well, we went, well, we probably need to sell it as well. And we realised some more funds out of that and moved back to the original house, as well as like we didn't need a house that big with one child. It was a pretty big house. It was 350 odd square meters, and yeah, it was a big home. And as I said, yeah, I was always freaking out about it.
Happy with the result though,
Yeah,
on
happy
it?
with the result.
Okay.
Yeah, it
So
was a
when
really
you-
good outcome. We sold that house for a good price.
and then moved back into the original property.
Back to the original house, which doesn't matter. You can draw on the walls. It's fine.
Yep.
And we stayed there. And the second daughter was born, and we stayed there for another couple of years before needing to sell that house.
So
actually.
let's go into that story there. So
Okay.
this property here, we paid $350 for,
Yeah.
and did we eventually sell that?
We did.
Okay.
We
Why?
eventually sold that because I'd started securing projects and I was in a situation where we had rising construction prices that were going through the roof, but our end sales weren't rising. And I had put two fairly big development sites under contract with longer settlements at an initial agreement of 50% 80% lens.
Yep.
And then I raised a whole bunch of money to be able to settle those properties. And what happened was just before settlement, 3 weeks prior, they were reassessed and they said, no, we're only going to lend you 50%. So
In what? 3 weeks before?
3 weeks before settlement on both. So
You needed to come up with an extra 30%.
well, yeah, I'd raised, so because I'd been through a lot of projects at that stage, I raised, and you know, you always putting contingency into property development. So I worked out what I thought I needed, and then I added a lot of time frame to and I added a lot of extra cost to it, and what ifs. Pretty much sucked up 90% of that extra that I'd raised, so I could settle the properties, but I literally would have no time or no funds to help run them, and I actually needed to sell the house as well to help settle as well.
Wow.
So that I needed to do that. Otherwise, I was offered.
What was that conversation like
a
at home?
bridging loan at 36% or something. That conversation was freaky. Well, my wife's amazing. She just supports me, which I'm very lucky. That was the
Were
foundation.
you just transparent about it, going, this is the story?
Yeah, this is it. This is where we're up to. Like, we've got two options. We do a bridging loan for this, to settle this, and that's 36%. That's the offer for a bridging loan. Also, and
36%.
I forgot this part, but I had to go and borrow another $100,000 from my parents at the time just to make all of this work and sell the house. So at this stage, I'm in deep shit. Yeah. I'm like, holy shit, what am I in here? And I had to settle both those properties within there wasn't a lot of distance in time between them. And then one of them we ran as a rental because we had to DA it. And I was going to DA it to subdivide into 3 lots. It was in a suburb called St. Lucia. It was within 200 metres of a centre zone, which is a new zoning. You could subdivide these things. And I thought, great, I'm going to build 3 really nice, high-level townhouses in there. But just to get that DA through, I just needed
some income,
more funds and more income, that kind of stuff. So we're renting this property out to 6 students, and so my wife's having to. I'm like, well, you need to help, run the rentals side of things, which she was doing. She would get calls at 9 o'clock at night. Can you buy me a fan? Like, it's too hot.
It's too hot in here.
Yeah, that sort of stuff, right? Anyway, so we were just like Band-Aid all the way through. Like, we were just trying to survive. As I think I was telling you before, I was selling things out of the garage
of the rental.
Yep. Of our house. Of my garage. Yeah. We had to move. We sold that house. We had to move into a rental to cover, just because we could. We had to sell and get the proceeds from that other house into the project to keep that moving.
Yep.
But then it was just.
What were you selling out of the garage out of interest?
I sold a mountain bike. I sold things like helmets, jackets,
whatever.
Whatever I could find.
Just to keep the
I had
cash
a pretty
flow.
expensive mountain bike at the time.
Okay.
But so, I sold that.
Not a kidney?
No. I've come close. I think I had 4 or 5 credit cards maxed out. I'd borrowed $100,000 from my parents.
Yeah, wow.
It was tough.
So then what got you through to the other side? Some of these projects came to life eventually?
Oh, not really. Well, I finished, yes. So the funny thing with projects is at one time we had 20 happening at once, but then some would go really well, others would probably break even-ish type thing. So the ones that went really well would keep you going for a little bit. But what ended up happening was I kind of got to this stage where I was done with the property development thing. I'm like, this is too stressful. I admit I didn't structure it right. I went into it as a fairly young guy thinking I can just solve, whatever problem comes up, I'll fix it type thing. Yeah. Not foreseeing a lot of those events that happened. And I just didn't structure it right. So I revisited where I'm going to go. What am I going to do? This is not working for me. I had 3-4 projects to finish up, and I did a SWOT analysis on myself and asked the people around me to do the same. And I worked out that I love the transaction more, not being transactional, but what I mean is I love the shorter cycle and the speed of like buying property, being in that part of it.
Not a 3-year build process.
Not a 3-year build and I likened it, I grew up riding motorbikes, and I likened it to, I much prefer motocross, where you've got the same circuit and you can try and better yourself on that particular corner or that jump every single lap, and you get to try it 50 times and you just, oh great, I did it better this time, versus a Paris to Dakar race. It's point to point and you don't know what's going going to get thrown at you.
Yeah.
There could be storms. There could be, whatever it is thrown in
You
your
could
path.
perfect your
Yeah,
circuit.
I'm like, that's property development.
Yeah.
This is buyer's agency.
Mm.
Actually, I really like this a lot better.
Mm.
My cash flow is a lot surer and faster. So that's where I decided to make that shift across into that world. And it took me a couple of years to really get it moving, even though I was being a buyer's agent, so to speak, to when we're doing projects, but we're only buying 10 a year kind of thing. So you're not like doing it every single day.
Yeah.
So that was how the transition came about.
Yeah, wow. And so then if you could cast your mind back to that original owner occupier that we did sell, we paid $350 for it. Does that house still stand today, or has it been bulldozed and it's something else?
No, it's still there.
What would it be worth?
Say around 1.3, 1.4 now.
Yeah, okay. So what's that, $1 million gain in less than 20 years?
Yeah. So about 20 years.
Yeah,
So it's kind of doubled and doubled again, pretty much.
Beautiful. Which is
350, 700, 1.4.
Yeah.
It might be 1.3, 1.4.
Yeah.
So it's close enough.
I mean, obviously it hasn't gone linear like that, but I imagine you've
Definitely
had a very short, sharp burst post-COVID like most of Southeast Queensland have had.
Well, yeah, as you know, nothing's linear in property.
Yes,
It's
definitely.
It's always like, peaks and troughs.
And so did the
plateaus.
eventual owner occupier, like, do we now own your own home? Like you're now
Yeah.
owner occupier again?
Yeah, so once I finally kind of found my feet back into the buyer's agency space, started Locate. Even when I started that, I still had a lot of that debt outstanding.
Yep.
I paid it all off within a pretty short period of time. So I paid my parents back.
I was going to say, including that one?
Yeah. Of course, paid everything back, got rid of all the credit cards, got back to ground zero.
And
I
started
was making
again.
really good money, and then I decided to go and put an offer on our owner rock without a deposit. And I figured I could make that deposit back pretty quickly. So I took the chance because I knew the market was moving. It was moving hard. It was moving fast. I could see what was.
How do you buy a property without a deposit?
Well, I had enough for the initial deposit.
Okay, yeah, but not
for
the
total.
Okay, that you would need on settlement.
That I would need on settlement.
Yes,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. So I had enough for that initial deposit.
Yep.
But to have.
And so you just backed yourself that between contract exchange and settlement, you'd come up with the
that I'd
deposit
come up
required.
with. Yeah. It took 4 months. Like I had a 4-month
Okay.
settlement. In the
That's fine.
negotiation, I started my offer with a 30-day.
Yeah.
I knew they couldn't move in 30 days. So then I said, oh, well, what about 4 months? Which is not what I needed.
What you
But
needed.
anyway,
Yeah.
we negotiated that. And then, I knew obviously what my pipeline was and where things were going.
Yep.
And that's where, we were able to settle and buy that first home. And the reason why I really was bullish on jumping at that house is because it had been fully renovated by a local builder.
Okay.
It was a character Queenslander, triple gable, which
Beautiful.
is the ones that
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
rides
yeah.
on a 630 block with a pool. And I'd seen transact around the corner an unrenovated version of that house on a smaller block. So it's on a 580, no garage.
Obviously no pool.
No pool, original condition for 100 grand less than what I was going to pay for this house.
Yeah.
So I knew as soon as that number comes out, this house is worth 1.516.
Oh, so no one had seen this number yet.
No one had seen this number
Gotcha,
yet.
but
That's
you
how
knew.
I'd
Yeah.
buy a lot of properties
course.
this way
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, that's gone under contract. We find out, we
course.
understand what it is, but that's not publicised yet.
Yes.
No one knows
Yeah.
it. I'm like, as soon as people know what that's worth,
The price is immediately skyrocket.
this skyrockets
Yeah.
because this has had a full renovation, brand new front garage put on, the whole bit, right? It's worth at least a
And obviously the vendors didn't know the result of this sale just yet.
Of course not,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
But that was off market. So, and I was like, well, I don't want it to go to market. If it does, and people see this other house around the corner, then it's just gone through.
Immediate.
So I knew straight away I could make equity on that home. So I was bullish on it. and
Do
it was-
whatever you could
I'll
to
do whatever
secure
I
it.
could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the property you still live in today?
No, but I still own it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh, but beautiful. So that's turned into an investment property now.
That's an investment property that had performed very, very well. Then we drew the equity and we moved and we bought another owner rock.
Okay.
So yeah, we've been on the owner rock path, but it's very different when you have. I've got 2 daughters.
Yep.
Their tastes increase as they
Of
get
course,
older.
yep.
I know you've got a young
Yep,
daughter now,
yep.
so it's
Watch
coming,
out.
It's coming. And lifestyle and all of those things happen, and they go to school with friends, and then they're all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, of course.
So anyway, the house that I'd bought was a 3-bed, 2-bath. So whilst it was beautifully renovated, it wasn't very big. And the girls were getting older into their teenage, starting to be teenage now.
yep.
So they really wanted some more space,
Yep.
which they needed. We looked at renovating that house because we just loved where it was and actually just loved the house.
Yeah.
Like it represented a lot to us. It was a big moment for me because I actually never thought I would buy another home again.
After the position that you put yourself
The position
in.
that I was in, I was like,
yeah.
I'm never owning a house
Yeah.
again. This is like not happening for us. And that house just clicked for me. When I drove past it, I just got
That's
this,
it.
That's the house for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
I get goosebumps now.
Still thinking
I
about
love that house. Yeah.
Do you reckon would you downsize back into it?
Yep, I'd love it. Yeah, it's it's just a beautiful home.
Yeah, wow.
And it's got a really good feel to it. I even rented it to one of my mates, and he goes, "Mate, this house is incredible." Like, he loves it.
Yeah,
He had
yeah,
bought
of
around the
course.
corner then. Anyway, I digress. Where were we going with that? So yeah, we were going to build.
Yep.
So, because I've built 24 houses
Yeah,
by this
yeah,
stage,
yeah.
right? But one of my daughters was in year 10. We put an offer on a block of land. I didn't get it. I didn't want to stretch for it because I ended up thinking, I know how long this is going to take. This will take me 2 years to build this house. At which time, I don't know. Maybe my daughter decides to go to uni in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you know, do I need a house this big?
Yeah.
So we decided to then just go for the owner occ already done,
Yep.
ready to roll straight in for lifestyle purposes.
Beautiful.
And also, we wanted to be the house that all the kids come over to
Yeah,
for
yeah.
prees.
That's
and
beautiful,
for,
right?
That's a small window
Yep.
in your life that you get that chance to do that.
And you want to see
And I
it.
was like, well, I'm going to take that chance. And
Yep.
my wife and I were like, let's do it, because I mean, even if something goes wrong and you've got to sell it in a few years, but not that you want that to happen, but you then get that time
Yeah,
with them
exactly.
in a prime part of their
Yeah,
life where
yeah.
they're living in a cracking house and they're proud to be there. So
And so you think that eventually, like, if this becomes too big for you guys, you might even then considering downsizing back into that old house. We love it so much.
yeah, possibly, or we might even, I think we'd head to a unit. I think in a
Interesting.
complex
Okay, yeah,
with,
yeah.
You know, all the
Are you
health and
seeing many
wellness
clients
and all
doing that?
Yeah, definitely.
What? So they're
Yeah,
so they're selling their big grand old
Yep.
Queenslanders,
Yep.
and then downsizing into something
100%.
the right fit for them. What does it look like? Like something like a 2-3 bed large unit?
Yeah, usually 3.
Okay.
It's just a different lifestyle then, because you've got access to amenity. You're
Yep.
closer into the city.
And there's got to be a
Yeah.
gain, right? Like what's the difference, like the usual sale price to what they purchase for spread?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's not even a gain.
Okay.
Sometimes it's actually an increase.
Yeah, really.
but
So
it is-
selling for what 1.2 and spending 1.3, for example.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Well, we've got a client now. I think the house was probably sell for the 3s, but we're looking for a unit for 4,
Yeah, wow.
right? And so
Because when you think of downsizing, you think that people are selling for 3 and buying for 1.5, or
that's
buying
true,
for 2.
and some are,
Yeah.
but others are. This is my time. This
Yep.
is a celebration for me. I've worked my ring off my
Mm,
whole
mm.
life, and this really should be I guess.
What does that
an
look
example
like?
for that.
What's a 4 mil apartment look like?
We were looking at one in Kangaroo Point.
gotta have views, right?
Oh, amazing
Yeah,
views. Yeah, this is a top floor. It's an older property.
Okay.
This particular one.
Yeah.
Top floor. It's two level.
Oh wow.
It's a 2-level
Yeah.
apartment. It's 4 bedrooms. It's like multiple living areas. 2 big balconies, and it's direct river facing and city and Story Bridge views.
Okay, beautiful.
So it's pretty cracking.
Yeah.
That one needs a reno, or you're getting into a lot of the off the plan new project type properties that are around the 3+ study/media.
Yep.
That sort
What
of
are
size.
they? Are they still 4 mil?
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
them
right.
are. It just depends where that is.
Mm.
Obviously, if you're talking your Newsteads, your Tenerifes, it's more.
Mm,
But
mm.
if you're looking at maybe West End, you can get something pretty good for that sort of money in those types of areas. And you're close to everything.
Yep.
You can walk to the city.
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
walk to everywhere. Right?
And you've got all the amenity in your own building as well.
And so when we're seeing this shift, people then want to be close to medical services, transport, all of those things. Whereas, and I think then it becomes more about the community as well, the people around them. When you're in a house, you're in the suburbs, you've got your life, you've got your kids, you're running around doing all that. But then it's like, cool, what do you do now if you're sitting in your house out in the suburbs? So
We're reliant on a car, and then what if you're not driving anymore? And
yeah, and a lot of these buildings come with cars.
Yeah,
a lot of them are supplied with a Tesla. Like
That's
there's
incredible.
a number of buildings here in Brisbane that have got Teslas that you can.
The
hire
building
out.
one that you can
the
just hire.
building's Tesla. Yeah,
It's
Things
just
like that.
very interesting philosophy, because like whenever you think of the word downsize, my mind immediately comes to, well, there has to be $1 million spread between what you sell for and what you buy for, otherwise why would you do it? But to your point, it's really about that lifestyle play.
But some of them have gotten into that position because they've got investment as well, right? So yes, the house might be 2 or 3, but they've got investment here, investment there, investment there. So in a sense, it can also be a downsize, and often it is where that happens as well.
It's just a right sizing of their portfolio.
Right sizing,
Yeah.
So they might sell off something, and effectively they're not downsizing in terms of money from their primary residence, but they're consolidating some funds into something where it's like a worthy prize for their life. But they are ahead.
Yes, of course.
overall.
Yeah.
So-
Let's put yourself in the shoes of a younger investor today, 20, 30, 20-something, 30-something. Or let's say, for example, your kids, right? Like if you were to give them advice in terms of, guys, don't do what I've done. Well, maybe do what I've done and kind of take the battle scars. But if you were to give them some guidance and sit down and go, okay, girls, this is what I would kind of construct out, or this is how I would construct a portfolio in 2026? Obviously, with the prices where they are, it's not easy to get into the market by any means. But how would you give that guidance to your kids or to any kind of younger investors that maybe listen to the podcast?
Well, I think for the younger investors, it does make complete sense, the rent vesting idea, obviously. And it's got to start where your capacity is, and you've got to look at what you can afford and what you can save. I've seen that with actually, young homeowners too much, that they want to live in the premium areas, but can't really afford that. And I think then it's going to come down to your budget and then buying the best property that you possibly can for that type of budget. Units at the moment in Brisbane are crazy, but obviously you then just have to look at forward supply of those and look into areas where there's a decent gap between house price and unit price, understand what's happening there. But
are you seeing that it makes sense from an investment standpoint?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Like we even bought one, just thrown into our portfolio, a one-bedder for $442,000. Like 3 years ago. I think it's now sitting at $650, $700, and it's renting for $720.
And they say apartments don't grow.
I know, right? And I'm normally very opposed to it, but and because for many years they didn't do anything. But I saw this, this option. My wife and I were looking to just put some investment into the market. And we went, well, what can we do for that? And I said, well, for $500K, you can go to the edge of Brisbane at the time and buy something like way out in these areas, or we could buy something and this was in Newstead.
Yeah, beautiful.
We could buy something in here, and I was looking in the building, and I was like, these prices can't stay at
where they are,
442,000. And you do the studies, and you look at average people per dwelling and what that looks like, and when people are getting married and divorce rates and all these kind of things. And you go, the one bedroom actually makes a little bit of sense here, because of that factor, that we're decreasing in our average people per dwelling. So lifestyle is changing, but this thing's so close to everything. And then we just select the right apartment in that building that's scarce. So that's what I'd say to young, like I went into that building, there were a number of different properties for sale. You look at the ones on the back of the building and you're one of the same as another 100 in the back of the building. And you're looking into another 500 people's lounge rooms. Like I literally could see the guy's TV across in another unit block just down there. And they all had a galley-style kitchen for the one bed. Whereas the particular one that we bought had a island bench that was on the corner at the front of the building, so it looked up the street with a water view. So it's rare because it's only a 13-story building, so you've only got 12 of that style
of those
in that building.
Correct.
Or you've got another 12 on the southern edge, but that's different. So for young people, I would say, you really just want to work out what your capacity is and what you can do, and then get the right advice. I mean, I know, selling our own thing here, but doesn't need to be from me, but get the right advice on how you can maximise that and get into the same thing. Because even that building, as an example, buying a one-bedder at 442, you could buy at the same time one of those other vanilla one-bedders for like 420.
And the value difference now?
Yeah, well, they're just... The one bed that we purchased has gone up a little. It's a bit stronger. The others are still dragged with it. But the main difference, though, is in the market that's not strong.
Yes.
So the market is strong now, so that rising tides lift all boats, right? But if the shit hit the fan and, you needed to sell something in there, and all those ones on the back are probably the ones that are going to need to sell. But if you needed to sell as well and you're on the front here in your unique apartment,
whose property stands out.
That's where you're going to have a bit of a difference. So that's more of a... covering yourself event, because I've seen it when markets change and markets turn, people flock to quality. Like we see it all the time. When markets change, well, not all the time because it hasn't changed a lot, but I have seen the dips. Been doing this for 15 plus years now. And people will, like during COVID, I had people on the phone going, oh, how much did it flood? I'm like, no, it flooded, guys. It's like it's up to here. Don't even.
That's a no.
It's a nice house, but it flooded. I just asked all the neighbours too, because I walked the street, but it flooded. So that's what I mean. People are buying anything. It's across from the railway station, and there's a power plant down the road.
How loud is the train?
Oh, well, should we buy it? No. And the reason I say not is that yes, it will still go up in value. It's more of a safety net. So because people say, oh, should I buy on a main road? I'm like, well, if you want, I mean, it's not like it's not going to go up. Like, tell me, if I gave you a property on Parramatta Road, 30 years ago,
you'd take it, right?
Would you own that now happily?
Yeah,
of course you would. It still went up.
Absolutely.
So it's not about it will grow in relative difference to the other properties around it. It's more of a safety thing for me, for people.
That's a really interesting way to put it. It is a really interesting way to put it. I think you've already answered this next question I had, but in terms of then kind of scaling from 1 to 2, and you've already done it with your own personal portfolio, but it's about then stripping out the equity to then leverage into the next one. Where possible, would you use cash if you've got it? If you had cash and equity, would you prioritize one over the other?
I would use equity because it's a lower cost.
Okay.
Like cash is like after tax money, and it would have cost you 47 cents in the dollar or whatever it ended up costing you, depending on what you're earning. Whereas equity is costing you the interest rate. So I always have used equity where possible. I just think it's like cheap money, really. I mean, compared to the money you need to earn, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we come in, we bought property one, we've pulled out a bit of equity, we're then potentially going to go in and buy property number two. If the kid's going, well, Dad, when are we going to be able to buy that owner-occupier? Would you prioritise your owner-occupier first, or would you just get into the market with whatever they could afford when they were ready to buy their first property, or would you rather that they just waited? Where does the owner-occupier fit in?
I'd say, look, get in wherever you can, and if that is an owner occupier,
Fabulous, sure.
fabulous,
Yeah.
still do it, and you'll have it'll just be people's different values that drive them into that direction. I say, and then, but just say you did go into investment first. I think again, it just comes down to your life and the position you're in as to whether you really want to move into that owner occupier yet. So we have a lot of investors that we've worked with or young people that we've worked with where, if it was at a certain price, they'll move into it in a certain area. But then if we couldn't find that, then they'll just buy it and invest it, and they'd stay living where they were. Like they were open to either or. Which one's better or not? I mean, of course, if you do the math and do all that, the rent investor's probably going to be the one that makes a lot more sense. But we're not just completely logical beings, are we? Like otherwise, we might as well just all live in a brown box.
Exactly.
Like it looks exactly the same as everybody else's property. We have emotion, and if we don't kind of listen and work with that emotion a little bit, then it's just boring, right? Life's just,
And so we're not afraid to potentially sell an asset down, right? I think you've kind of mentioned that.
Well,
Like if you were constructing a portfolio today and we've acquired a couple of acquisitions, we've used equity, what's the kind of long-term vision with that? Is it just buy and hold? Would you eventually sell an asset down?
as we mentioned before, and your wife's Italian, so is mine. She's like, I'm never selling anything ever again. We had to before.
Yeah.
So we were just in a position where we had to. We really are not wanting to sell anything, despite the arguments with the accountant who's like, well, can you do something better with it? And that's always the way I look at it as well. Well, can we do something better with this? But we've still got the in and out costs. We've still
Transactions.
What are we going to do with the extra money that we pull out of that house that's going to be better than what that is? So I'm always going to evaluate it in that sense. Better return, less risk, whatever that might be. So I think, it just compounding over time is going to be
Your best friend?
the best friend, right? It does, and it creeps up after not too long. All of a sudden you go, oh wow, there's that first house that I mentioned is now, it's not even 4 years since I bought it. There's $1 million equity, in it, right? And so that's just crept up, and I didn't have to do anything for that. I had to pay the loan, but it's done its work there. We can now leverage that and do the next thing. So I think as much as you could, I would sell it unless you've decided that there's a better and bigger use for that as funds.
What about value add? Do you believe in value add? Like, is it and what does it look like for you? Is it a cosmetic renovation? What are your thoughts on like granny flat additions, for example? What are your thoughts on the value add in general?
Oh, 1,000% love the value add just because of the development background. I know how to add value from like, do you want to do a light reno through to like we've done projects where high rental, the rooming accommodation ones, like really high rental value add type stuff, to granny flat, to minor reno. I think it all has to come down to the numbers though. I see so many people look at the granny flat or look at something else. I'm like, yeah, but is that reno or that granny flat actually making you more than what you've spent on it?
Are you seeing that it's doing that?
No, well, I want to see that it's doing it before I'm going to say do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, if it's not returning you more, then
does it work in this market in Brisbane?
I think the granny flat. I think that it does, but it's marginal, and I think you need to then just take probably a little bit of a longer view on it as well. But I'd still want to see that for the dollar you spend, you're making more than that on there. From a rental return perspective, or you're increasing the yield, so it's pushing the value of your property.
Correct.
When you look at it from a yield reverse, like a commercial property equation, I'd want to see that that's increased it by more than the cost of the granny flat, for example. So
before you obviously
could I resell I bought it at a 4.5%
Yeah,
yield. Could I resell this at a higher yield and make more money over and above the cost of my addition? Like that's how I would be looking at it. Because I break everything down to just the final number, return on cash.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like that's it, right?
Am I better or am I worse off for making
that's
this
it. Like
decision?
if I put in $1, what's the outcome?
Yeah,
it's a very simple equation. And we did this in an investor the other day who's gone for the pretty. I want this pretty one, and I'm like, I think this one's better. It's not a pretty house. And we just mapped it out. And I said, well, here's your annual holding costs. Here's your 10-year projections based on what these homes have actually grown by in their sales events. Not the market or the general stats. It's what these homes have actually achieved. So there's your 10-year holding cost. There's your 10-year gain. What's the net of that? What cash did you put in? And then that net
Dictates
cash
your
is
response.
just a percentage
Yeah.
of the cash that you put in.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Mm.
Other factors, obviously, is it
What
maintenance and
did
different
they
things
end
like
up
that,
seeing
but,
the light? That particular client?
They've now, and this answers some of what I think you were going to ask me. They've paused because the interest rate change has changed their borrowing. Because they'd come to us toward the end of their pre-approval, and we had a very short window to try and execute on that.
right.
They happened to go overseas in the middle of that, so that made it a little bit tricky. But that's fine. We'll reassess. So no, we didn't buy that property. But one property, like these two are similar prices. One property net out over 10 years, 700 grand better than the other. So to
Wow.
me, it was like a
For a similar
complete
price
no-brainer.
point now.
Similar price point. One was far closer into Brisbane. One was 20, 30 k's out.
But what was the difference? One looked slightly better
Yeah,
right
well,
now.
well, the one further out looks newer
Okay,
and a bit neater,
yeah,
right? It's a
sure,
low set
sure,
brick and
yeah,
it looks like more modern
Yeah,
and that kind of thing. The other one,
And that was the appeal.
That was the appeal. The other one closer in is like a post-war house on a decent sized block in 12k from Brisbane suburbs. So it doesn't look great, but the fact is
Fundamentals
the,
will dictate
the
it's gonna
growth.
be,
The growth's been a lot better.
You mentioned something else I want to kind of ask you in around one of the asset classes, and you mentioned the word commercial. Does that kind of cross the business at all? Like, do we do any commercial activity, commercial buying, or do you see investors kind of change asset class and sell down a residential property to buy a commercial acquisition? Where does commercial fit into locate?
Yeah, like I don't see that happening too often. But obviously, I think that it is a good strategy. I bought some cracking commercial sites, but I think my development experience is what helped me in those instances. But it's not really a key focus at the moment for Locate. However, we are we're in talks with some commercial buyers agents to join the business. I believe in it. It's super tight. Southeast Queensland for certain type of commercial stock it's super tight. The site I ended up buying in the eastern suburbs of Brisbane in the port area, the growth on that's crazy. The client didn't want a site that big. It was on 8,000 square meters. But I had a quote. I bought this off market like a few years ago, right? But I had a quote for him. He just needed the office building. I had a quote to rent the hard stand that would have paid for his whole mortgage. He'd run his business there for free. For free. But it was a really challenging site because it had a pre-existing DA and we had to do a whole bunch of work on it to try and work out
why do you see people like that asset? Like, why do you see people like that as an asset class?
Commercial?
Yeah.
I see that they like higher returns, generally speaking. Obviously, tenants paying a lot of the costs, etc. And I think it just comes back to really just the returns. But you have to be that type of investor, obviously, that's probably a little bit more savvy, that has more deposit, of
Maybe
course.
some experience within the investment space.
A bit more experience, or potentially you run a company or in a business that you understand what's happening in that space and what's going to be good and what isn't. So.
Just quickly before we kind of round things out, what's your kind of take in terms of what you're seeing for Brisbane and Southeast Queensland in general moving forward? Obviously, there's all this talk about when we've kind of had a bit of a run and there's the whole Olympics in 2032. What's your best crystal ball prediction in terms of what we can expect to see for Brisbane and wider Southeast Queensland moving forward? Yeah,
I mean, it's an ongoing thought at the moment and discussion because of the whole AI thing and how that's going to affect jobs. That part, I don't know how that's going to affect things. But as it stands at the moment, there's a few things playing out that we're seeing on the ground affect the market. That grant for up to $1 million has caused a frenzy.
Chaos at the bottom end.
In that space. It is chaos. Like your stuff, properties that would have traded a year ago, like units and that kind of thing for 700 and now getting 850. Like it's pretty chaotic.
It's just pushed the price up, right? You give people free money, they're going to go and spend it.
That's right. But either those people that own them that was an investment, and maybe they're then going to the downside, or maybe they're going for the bigger house. So it steps its way up. So that depth of that market there pushing things along, I think, is really helping things. We're seeing a huge increase in construction costs too. So I was speaking to an architect the other day. He designs quite high-end homes, and last year they priced a job in November, December, and it was 6,000 to 7,000 a metre. This year it was 8,000 to 9,000. So that's a massive jump in a few months, right? So why is that important? That's important because it has a massive effect on the ability to supply more product to the marketplace. And Brisbane, in terms of being able to keep up a supply to, if you look at net immigration, and then the fact that I read some stats the other day, or I was on not necessarily read, but was in a presentation from one of the large property groups, a private wholesale investment group.
Yep.
Well, they spoke about 3% of the globe knows about Brisbane now. By the Olympics, 90% of the globe will know about Brisbane, right? And the thing is that Brisbane is a pretty great place to live. I've travelled a lot, and I've lived in Sydney. It's the weather's great, the lifestyle's great, the amenities here are great, the restaurants, cafe scene has really gone through the roof in the last few years. We're close to great beaches. There's a lot to like here.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to like. Yeah. Obviously, public transport needs some improvement. But I think but the reason it's not as strong is because it's just easier to get around. You can be on all sides of the city in 10, 20 minutes in Brisbane. It's pretty easy to get around. So I think coupled with lack of new supply, more interest, more people coming here, plus you can look online and Google the reports about how many workers we need for the Olympics. There's different reports from 40 to 60,000, but either way, it's a lot.
We need people here.
And we don't have anywhere to put them right now. And I'm experiencing this with clients who are buying property here with businesses in Melbourne because their business just won contracts here and they need to bring people here. I've got their staff calling me going, can you find me somewhere to rent? We can't find anywhere to rent. So you've got all these pressures playing out on the market. Very little is happening to help supply. Council are talking about making some changes to the town planning rules.
Gotcha.
They need to do that, but I don't see any of it being significant enough to really help. But then after, say, another year or two, once the construction needs to start for the Olympics, I think that's residential construction. You may as well forget about it for a while.
So if you're still seeing that we're going to have some good growth, some good times still be had in Brisbane. Your clients are obviously taking advantage and have been taking advantage kind of that post-COVID boom. I imagine there would be some fabulous results you could most of your clients would have seen over the last 5 to 6 years.
It's been crazy. Yep.
With respect to capital growth. Just kind of rounding out all together there, any kind of last little, I usually ask for a horror story, but we've already heard your horror story. Any kind of last little golden gem or nugget or some kind of little bit of wisdom or piece of advice that our listeners could give, and maybe like I mentioned before, maybe it's something that you've told your daughters, with respect to investing, is there just one little golden nugget that you might be able to impart on the listeners?
I always say something pretty simple. I just say buy the best property you can as close to the city as you can for the yield that you can stomach. That's kind of it.
I think that's pretty beautiful.
I mean, it's very simple.
Yeah, but I don't think it needs to be much more complicated.
But that's about it, right?
Yeah.
And
just one more time.
Buy the best property that you can afford, as close to the city as you can
for the yield you can stomach.
For the yield you can stomach.
Yeah,
and
wow.
So I combine that with I want a house. Okay, great. Well, let's get it on a decent sized block. Cool. The closer you come in, the worse condition the house is going to be, the lower the rent. So let's get it to as close as we can in the best street and position and that kind of stuff for the yield that you're happy to sort of handle for the moment, because the yield, it'll get better.
Of course.
It'll improve. But bought well in the right suburb, that property will go crazy as well.
That's phenomenally put, mate. Yeah. Thank you so much for your mindset, your wisdom that you've been able to impart on this, and importantly, being able to kind of share your story and kind of really going deep into the weeds and being so forthcoming with that story there. And we really appreciate it, and looking forward to getting back onto the podcast moving forward.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Chat soon.
Cheers.